Does your child melt down over a broken toy? Do they burst into tears after losing a game or getting a bad grade? That's totally normal. But what if I told you there's an ancient secret, a sort of superhero code that can transform those tears into real strength and disappointment into a valuable life lesson? What if we could teach a child to be not just smart, but truly wise, not just strong, but utterly resilient? Today, we're talking about Stoicism for kids, and I promise you, this isn't going to be a boring lecture on philosophy. We're going to unlock practical tools that can help your child build an inner fortress, a resilience capable of weathering any life storm. Stick with us, and you'll learn how to raise a true emotional superhero. First, let's shatter a common myth. When we hear the word Stoic, we often picture someone emotionless, someone who simply doesn't care. That is fundamentally wrong. Forget the dusty textbooks and bearded old men in togas. Stoics weren't just philosophers, they were people of action. Emperors like Marcus Aurelius, who ruled a massive empire. Playwrights like Seneca, who advised an emperor, and even slaves like Epictetus, whose wisdom has survived centuries. They lived in a world filled with chaos, war, and uncertainty, and they created an incredibly practical system for maintaining calm, clarity of mind, and inner strength. Their main secret is simple, yet genius. We cannot control what happens around us, the weather, other people, or random accidents, but we always, absolutely always, can control our reaction to those events. It is in this small gap between the event and our response where the greatest human power lies, and this is the exact power we can give to our children. So, where do we start? The first and most essential key to unlocking the Stoic superpower is the circle of control. It's an incredibly simple yet profoundly powerful idea. Ask your child to imagine two circles, one inside the other. In the small inner circle, we put everything we can fully control. These are our thoughts, our words, our actions, our attitude towards things, the effort we put in. Now the big outer circle holds everything else. Things like the weather outside, the words and actions of other people, even those closest to us, the outcome of a football game, even minor things like breaking a favourite mug or a friend not wanting to play. The Stoics teach us this. You must spend all your energy and focus only on what lies inside that small circle. Trying to change what's in the outer circle is like trying to stop the rain by shouting at it. It's useless and exhausting. Explain this to your child with a simple example. You can't force the sun to shine, but you can choose to grab your umbrella and rubber boots so you can happily jump in the puddles. This is a fundamental shift in thinking. It lifts an enormous weight of responsibility off the child for things beyond their control and gives them real power over their own life. Now let's put the circle of control into practice. Imagine a classic childhood tragedy. Their most beloved toy breaks. The immediate reaction is tears, anger, and shouts. That's not fair! I want a new one. This is an instinctive attempt to control the outer circle, the fact that has already occurred. Instead of immediately scolding or comforting, ask the child a Stoic question. Let's think about what in this situation we can control and what we can't. He can't make the toy whole again. That's outside his control. That's a fact. But what can he control? His actions. He can try to fix it. He can carefully put it away in a memory box. He can invent a new game with his other toys. He can be sad for a bit. That's totally normal. But then choose not to let this broken toy ruin the whole day. Your job is to gently redirect his attention away from useless anger and toward what is in his power. This doesn't mean he shouldn't be upset. Stoics never denied emotions. It means he learns not to get stuck in that frustration, but rather to act based on what he can influence. That is the first step toward resilience. The next powerful tool in the Young Stoics toolkit is the ability to turn obstacles into the path itself. Marcus Aurelius famously wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." So what does this mean for a child? Imagine they are building a massive tower of blocks, and their younger sibling runs by and completely knocks it over. The first reaction is usually anger and frustration. The obstacle is obvious, but this is exactly where the opportunity for practice lies. We can teach the child to see this not as a catastrophe, but as a new mission. We encourage them to think, okay, the tower's destroyed. That's the obstacle. How can I use this to my advantage? Maybe I'll build 2 smaller towers instead. Or perhaps I'll build a fortress around the spot where the tower stood, protecting it. Or even better, maybe this is the perfect chance to teach my younger sibling how to build with me. This kind of approach changes everything. The problem transforms from a source of frustration into a creative puzzle. It teaches the child mental flexibility and true adaptability. Explain to them that the most interesting heroes in stories and games are the ones who overcome the toughest challenges. The dragon isn't the end of the quest for the knight. It's the ultimate task that, once solved, makes him stronger than he ever was before. But what about genuinely upsetting events, the kind you simply can't turn into a game? Say, for instance, a long-awaited trip to the amusement park is cancelled because of the rain. This is where a concept the Stoics called amor fati, the love of one's fate, comes into play. It sounds complicated, but the core idea is simple: learning to accept what we cannot change, and even finding some benefit in it. This doesn't mean you have to cheer for the rain. It means accepting the reality. It is raining. The trip is cancelled. This is simply the way things are. And then asking the crucial question, okay, since this is the situation, what good can we do instead? Maybe it's the perfect chance to set up a home movie theatre with popcorn, or build a massive fort out of pillows and blankets. Perhaps even learn how to bake cookies. The whole point is not to waste energy fighting reality, but to accept it and act within these new circumstances. Show your child by example. Instead of sighing and complaining about the weather, say enthusiastically, "Wow, rain! That means today is our day for indoor adventures." This way, you teach them not to be a victim of circumstances, but to be the master of them. That is the essence of loving your fate, whatever it may be in the moment. Another Stoic technique, which might seem a little unexpected but is incredibly effective, is called premeditatio malorum, or the premeditation of evils. Now, don't be alarmed. This isn't about scaring your child or turning them into a pessimist. Quite the opposite, actually. It's a mental exercise designed to prepare them for potential difficulties, which in turn makes those difficulties less intimidating. Take a common scenario. Let's say your child is anxious before a school test, worrying, what if I get a bad grade? Instead of simply telling them, don't think negative thoughts, try a different approach. Ask them directly, okay, let's just imagine for a moment that you do get a bad grade. What's the absolute worst thing that will happen? They might answer, Mum will be upset. You respond, that's true. I might be disappointed for 5 minutes, but I'll still love you just as much. What else? The teacher will be mad. Maybe, but the lesson will end eventually. Then what? By following this chain of thought, the child realizes that even the worst-case scenario isn't actually the end of the world. Then, pivot the conversation toward constructive action. Now let's think about what's actually within your circle of control to prevent this from happening. Can you prepare well? Can you make sure you get enough sleep before the test? This technique dramatically reduces anxiety because the unknown is always far scarier than an established, even negative scenario. The child gains the confidence that they can handle any outcome. Let's dive into the concept of virtue. For the Stoics, virtue wasn't a good. It was the only true good. Conversely, the only real evil was vice. Everything else, things like health, money, reputation, even life and death itself, they categorized as indifference. How do we explain this idea to a child? It's straightforward. What truly matters isn't how many toys they own. That's an indifferent. But whether they choose to share them, that's virtue. It's not about whether they won the game, another indifferent, but about whether they played fairly and congratulated the winner gracefully. That's virtue. You need to shift the focus from external achievements to internal character. Instead of praising your child for a top grade, praise the diligence and effort they put into preparing for the lesson. Don't praise the trophy. Praise their courage to compete and their refusal to quit. When your child complains, "Billy called me a mean name," ask them, what Billy said is in his circle of control. What's in yours? How should a courageous and kind person choose to respond? This teaches the child to rely not on external validation, but on their own inner moral compass. They start realizing that their inherent worth isn't determined by successes or failures, but by the quality of their character. This foundational understanding builds incredibly robust self-esteem, a strength that cannot be shaken by outside opinions or the inevitable hardships of life. Another incredible Stoic technique is called the view from above. When a child faces a problem that feels massive and all-consuming, encourage them to play a simple game of imagination. The idea is to use visualization. Say, let's pretend we're soaring high up like a bird. We look down and our house is tiny. We fly even higher, and now our entire city looks like a map. Go higher still, and we can see our whole country. And now we're floating in space, looking at our entire planet, a small blue marble. Now picture this. On that tiny marble, in that city, inside that house, there is a little boy or girl who is feeling upset because then you name their specific problem. From this incredible altitude, any childhood difficulty, even the one that felt the most overwhelming, suddenly seems far less significant. This technique is not about invalidating the child's feelings. It helps them put the problem into proper context and recognize its true scale. It works especially well when a child has had a falling out with a friend or is worrying over a small trifle. The view from above teaches perspective, helping them understand that most of our everyday anxieties are just tiny dots on the massive map of life. It's incredibly calming and provides the opportunity to view the situation more objectively and peacefully. The Stoics had a lot to say about how we relate to other people. They introduced the concept of sympatheia, which essentially means the fundamental interconnectedness of everything. They believed we are all parts of one giant organism, like fingers on the same hand. So, how do we apply this to parenting? Teach your child to see other people not as rivals, but as allies or teammates. When your child gets angry at someone, remind them that the other person is likely behaving badly, not because they are inherently malicious, but because they are hurting, struggling, or simply making a mistake. As Seneca famously said, "Man is a sacred thing to man." Explain that by helping others, we are actually helping ourselves, because we are all in the same boat. For instance, if a classmate gets a bad grade and is upset, encourage your child not to gloat, but to show compassion. You could prompt them by saying, "Imagine how awful he must feel right now. Maybe he needs your support." If someone pushes on the playground, you can respond by saying, "Maybe no one has taught him how to play differently. Let's show him how much fun we can have playing together." This approach eliminates judgment and cultivates genuine compassion, empathy, and kindness. Your child begins to understand that we are stronger when we stand together, rather than when we stand against each other. But what about grudges and the urge to seek revenge? These are incredibly powerful, almost childish feelings. The Stoics offer profound wisdom on this subject as well. Marcus Aurelius famously wrote, "The best revenge is not to be like your enemy." It's a remarkably simple yet genius insight. If someone insults your child and they feel the need to retaliate immediately, they are sinking to the aggressor's level. Essentially, they are handing control of their own behaviour over to the other person. That is a form of weakness. Where then lies the true strength? True strength is found in maintaining composure. It means refusing to return malice for malice. This isn't about being a passive victim or a pushover. It means rising above the situation. Explain this to your child using this analogy. When someone tries to provoke you, it's like they are throwing a muddy ball at you. If you catch it and throw it back, you both end up covered in mud. But if you simply sidestep it, the mud stays only on the person who threw it. Teach them to meet aggression not with a counterattack, but with calm composure, or even humour. This disarms the aggressor, and most importantly, ensures your child retains complete control over the interaction. They aren't merely reacting, they are acting. They choose how to behave and refuse to let anyone else dictate the terms of their emotional life. This, right here, is genuine inner freedom. Let's talk about complaining. Kids complain a lot, and frankly, so do adults. They gripe about the weather, the food, or maybe how boring their classes are. Stoicism teaches us to root out this habit entirely, primarily because a complaint is essentially an admission of your own powerlessness. When we complain, all we're doing is focusing our energy on what we dislike and what we cannot change. It's a complete waste of effort. Instead of resorting to complaints, a Stoic asks themselves two key questions. Is this within my circle of control? And what actionable steps can I take? If the soup tastes bland, is there anything you can do about it? Maybe ask for some salt or stir in a spoonful of sour cream. If that's impossible, then you simply eat the soup without complaining, accepting the situation as it is. If a class is boring, can you change that? You could try to actively seek out an interesting nugget of information, or maybe ask the teacher a provocative question to spark the discussion. If there's truly nothing you can do, then view it as excellent training in patience. Teach your child to replace complaints with either action or acceptance. Instead of shouting, "I'm bored," they should ask, "What can I do right now to make this interesting?" Instead of whining, "I don't want to do my homework," they should reframe it as, "How can I finish this faster and more efficiently so I can get back to playing?" This nurtures a proactive mindset and trains them to drop that role of being a perpetual victim of circumstance. The Stoics placed enormous value on both the morning and the evening. They saw the morning as a time for mental preparation and the evening as a time for analysis. This practice can easily be integrated into a child's routine. In the morning, instead of immediately reaching for gadgets, dedicate just 5 minutes to conversation. Ask them, what are your plans for the day? What difficulties might you face? How could you handle it if things don't go according to plan? This is essentially a mini version of premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of evils. You aren't programming them for failure. You're preparing them for reality by equipping them with tools to solve potential problems. And in the evening, right before bed, conduct a simple reverse review of the day. Ask 3 simple questions just as the Stoics did. What did I do well today? What could I have done better? And which of my virtues did I display, or conversely, fail to display? This isn't an interrogation. It's a calm and benevolent process of self-reflection. It teaches the child reflection, mindfulness and accountability for their actions. They begin to understand the critical link between their behaviour and its consequences. This simple, 10-minute practice, morning and evening, can fundamentally transform their approach to life, making it more meaningful and manageable. Let's talk about the fear of making mistakes. Many children are paralysed by the fear of messing up, getting a bad grade, or losing a competition. This kind of fear is completely paralysing and actively stunts their development. Stoicism, however, offers a completely different way to view these mistakes. A mistake isn't a failure. It's feedback. It's simply information telling you that you need to try a different approach. The philosopher Epictetus taught that we should approach life like a game of catch. The goal isn't just to catch the ball at any cost, but to play well, to play gracefully and by the rules. The ball itself, the result, the grade, the win, is what the Stoics call an indifferent. What truly matters is how we play, how much effort we put in, and how we handle both victory and defeat. Remind your child that every great scientist, athlete and inventor made thousands of errors before they finally found success. A mistake isn't a permanent stain. It's a vital stepping stone on the path to mastery. When your child makes an error, do not scold them. Instead, say, "That's great. We found a mistake. Now we know one way that definitely doesn't work. Let's think about what this can teach us and how we can do better next time. This approach eliminates fear, encourages experimentation, and cultivates what modern psychology calls a growth mindset. Another crucial concept is the inner citadel. Stoics believe that deep inside, each of us resides an impregnable fortress, a place that cannot be breached by insults, failures, or the opinions of others. This citadel is our mind, our right to choose, and our fundamental capacity to reason and make decisions. As a parent, your task is to help your child recognize and reinforce this citadel. How? By consistently pointing them back to their circle of control. When someone teases them, remind them, the words of another person are like pebbles thrown against the wall of your fortress. They cannot harm you unless you open the gates and invite them in. Your reaction is that gate. You decide whether to open it or keep it shut. When they are upset about a setback, tell them that failure happened outside, in the external world. But inside your citadel, you can still be strong, calm, and ready to try again. This metaphor is incredibly intuitive for children. It immediately gives them a sense of security and control. They start to understand that their happiness and peace of mind don't depend on outside events, but on what happens inside their own head. And that is the most valuable gift you could ever give them. Stoicism also teaches us to appreciate what we have, right here and now. It's the perfect antidote to the endless chase for "I want more." Children often focus on what they don't have, a friend's latest toy, or a vacation their classmate took. The Stoics practice negative visualization, which we can introduce in a very gentle form. This isn't meant to frighten the child, but rather to cultivate appreciation. For example, when you tuck them in at night, you might say, "Isn't it wonderful that we have this warm, cozy bed? Imagine that some people don't have one at all." Or at dinner, "This is so delicious. Let's pause for a moment and imagine we didn't have this food. Wow, how lucky are we to have it?" This exercise, when done without moralizing, treating it more like a game, teaches deep gratitude. It shifts their focus from scarcity to abundance. The child begins to notice and appreciate simple things: delicious meals, a roof over their head, a parent's embrace, or the opportunity to play with friends. This doesn't make them passive. They can still strive for more, but they learn how to be happy with what they already have. And that is the foundation for a deep, stable sense of well-being that lasts a lifetime. Let's talk about the power of words. The Stoics were true masters of language and deeply understood its influence. They taught us to speak sparingly, but always with substance, and to take full responsibility for every single thing we say. How do we instill this responsibility in a child? First, we need to wean them off idle chatter and gossip. Explain that discussing other people behind their backs is beneath us. It's unproductive and pointless. It's simply a waste of time and energy on things we cannot control. Second, teach them precision in their language. Instead of accepting, "This is a terrible day," ask them, "What exactly happened? Did your pencil break so you couldn't finish your drawing?" Let's call things what they are. This approach helps them avoid catastrophizing, that tendency to feel like the whole world is hostile just because of one small inconvenience. Third, and this is the most critical lesson, teach them that their word is their honor. If they make a promise, they must follow through, not because they fear punishment, but because being a person of your word is an act of virtue itself. This builds integrity, self-respect, and respect for others. A truly strong person doesn't make empty promises, and this is something we absolutely can, and should, teach from the earliest age. How does Stoicism help us manage anger? Anger is one of the most destructive emotions we face. Seneca dedicated an entire treatise to this subject, famously calling anger a brief madness. The key Stoic method for managing anger is simply the pause. When someone starts to lose their temper, whether it's a child or an adult, teach them this simple rule: stop. Take 3 deep breaths and exhale completely before saying or doing anything. This simple technique creates that crucial, saving space between the triggering event and your immediate reaction. In those few seconds, the initial impulse of fury weakens, allowing reason to take control. Once the person has calmed down a bit, it's time to analyze the situation. Ask questions like, what exactly triggered your anger? Were your expectations realistic? Is what happened truly as terrible as it seemed at first glance? Explain that anger is almost always rooted in a mistaken judgment. We get angry when we feel we've been treated unfairly, or when events don't unfold the way we think they should. But Stoicism teaches us that the world owes us nothing. Things simply happen. The wise person's job isn't to rage against reality, but to accept it and act rationally instead. This is a skill that requires continuous practice, but it is truly invaluable. Let's dive into another crucial concept, distinguishing between what is actually said to us and how we choose to interpret it. As Epictetus taught, it is not the things themselves that disturb men, but their judgments about these things. This is the core idea we need to grasp. Imagine someone tells your child, "You are stupid." That phrase, on its own, is just noise, a simple collection of sounds. It only gains the power to hurt if the child internalizes it and agrees, "He's right. I really am stupid." You must teach them to separate those two components. The as fact is, the person spoke the words, and the mono judgment, the internal choice to be offended or not. Try using this simple analogy. If someone walked up and called you a green crocodile, you wouldn't get upset, would you? You'd just assume they were talking nonsense. So why should you get upset when they call you stupid? That is also just their opinion, and it may be totally mistaken. This trains the child not to internalize or dwell on what others say. They begin to realize that nobody can truly offend them without their own emotional permission. Their emotional state is entirely their choice. This provides them with an incredible shield against ridicule, insults, and misplaced criticism. Stoicism is fundamentally a philosophy of action. It's not enough just to understand the principles. You have to practice them every single day. That's why it's crucial not just to tell your child about these ideas, but to actively help them apply them. A great way to do this is to create a little Stoics code. A few simple rules you can post somewhere visible. For example, 1. I focus only on what I can control. 2. I turn obstacles into opportunities. 3. I respond to frustration or harm with kindness or calm. 4. I tell the truth and I keep my promises. Discuss these rules regularly. Find examples of them in action, in cartoons, books, or in real life. But here is the most important part. Be the example yourself. Kids learn far more from what we do than from what we say. If you constantly complain, get angry over minor inconveniences, or obsess over things you can't control, all your lessons will be pointless. By practicing Stoicism alongside your child, you're not just helping them grow, you are helping yourself become calmer, wiser, and ultimately happier. It truly is a shared journey toward becoming the best version of yourselves. Many people believe Stoicism is primarily about suppressing emotions. Let's clear up this misconception right here, right now. This distinction is crucial. Stoicism isn't about suppression. It's about awareness and analysis. A Stoic doesn't just tell themselves, "Don't be sad, don't be angry." Instead, they ask, "Why am I feeling sad? Were my expectations of reality unrealistic? Is the source of this sadness within my circle of control?" An emotion is a signal, like a warning light on your car's dashboard. It would be foolish to smash the light or pretend it isn't glowing. A wise driver checks what the signal indicates and takes appropriate action. We should treat our emotions the same way. Teach a child not to fear their feelings, but to approach them with curiosity. They should ask, "Wow, I feel hurt right now. I wonder why. What specific thought triggered this feeling? Can I choose to see this situation differently?" This is the approach of a scientist analysing data, not a soldier suppressing a rebellion. This is precisely what develops the emotional intelligence everyone talks about. the child learns not to be a slave to their emotions, but their wise ruler, one who listens carefully to their advisors or feelings, but always makes the final decision themselves. And to wrap up the main portion of our discussion, let's talk about the ultimate goal here. Why are we teaching our children Stoicism? The purpose is not to raise a flawless, never-crying robot. The goal of Stoicism is eudaimonia, or simply put, a state of flourishing, a meaningful and truly happy life. This is a life lived in accordance with nature and reason. For a child, this translates to the following. They will suffer less over minor upsets. They will be braver when trying new things, without fearing mistakes. They will build stronger, healthier relationships with others, founded on kindness and respect. They will possess an inner core of resilience that helps them navigate the inevitable difficulties of life, from conflicts in the schoolyard to more serious challenges in the future. You are not giving them a fish. You are giving them a fishing rod. You aren't solving their problems for them. Instead, you are giving them a comprehensive toolkit and a mental operating system so they can solve those problems themselves. You are not just raising an obedient child, but a free, strong, and virtuous human being, capable of living a good life, no matter what happens. So, what are our key takeaways from all this? The circle of control, giving us mastery over our lives, the ability to turn obstacles into the path itself, amor fati, or the love of fate, which frees us from suffering, mentally preparing for difficulties, dramatically reducing anxiety, and focusing on virtue as the ultimate treasure. These aren't just abstract philosophical terms, they are practical superpowers that build that crucial, unshakable fortress of the spirit inside your child. Remember, Stoicism isn't about becoming cold or indifferent. Quite the opposite. It's about deeply understanding your emotions and learning to manage them instead of letting them manage you. It's about facing any storm in life with clarity of mind and a composed heart. By embedding these principles, you are giving your child more than just advice. You're handing them a true compass for a happy and intentional life. Thank you for watching this video all the way through. If you found these ideas helpful, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss future episodes. Now, a question for you. Which of these Stoic lessons are you going to try applying with your child first? Share your thoughts and experiences in the comments below.